Hello everybody. Today we're going to be jumping into our new topic, which is all about integers. In our first lesson, lesson 1, we're going to be talking about how we can use positive and negative numbers to represent different quantities. So there are two key terms that we need to talk about today. We want to talk about what an integer is and what an opposite is. So first, an integer is counting numbers, their opposites, and 0. So for example, our counting numbers, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. That's an integer. We have 0, which is an integer. And then the opposite of our counting numbers. So -1, -2, -3, -4, and so on. So these are what integers are. Now, what is an opposite? An opposite are numbers that are located on opposite sides of 0 and are the same distance from 0. So for example, if I said +6, the opposite of +6 is -6. We know this because they are on opposite sides of 0. One is on the positive side and one is on the negative side, and they are the same distance. To find the distance, we can just count how far away it is from 0. So first, -6 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces away from 0. And notice that I put a +6 here because distance is always positive. So no matter if you're talking about a positive or a negative number, if you then want to count the distance in between any integer, distance is always positive. And I always like to think about this in terms of running. So for instance, my sister loves running and she runs half marathons. And a half marathon is 13.1 miles. But she can't run a negative mile. That's not a thing. You can't run negative 13.1 miles because it's how far you're going. So distance is always positive. So -6 is 6 spaces away from 0. And let's see how many spaces +6 is away from 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 again. So these are a perfect example of what an opposite is. Now let's think about some real world scenarios. So we want to think about, why is it important to have negative numbers? So first, let's think about what are some real world situations where we could need a negative number. So what are some situations where we would need a negative number? Well, for instance, when we're talking about the temperature outside, we need a negative number because it could be -15 degrees outside. That's pretty cold. We could also think about if you're diving underwater. If you're diving underwater and you're going below sea level, say you dive 3 feet underwater, that would be -3. I always like to think about money too. What if you borrow $17 from somebody? That means you owe them $17. So these are all examples of why we need negative numbers. And then let's also think about 0. What are some real world examples of a situation that would represent 0? Well, sea level is one. So let's think about this. If we're swimming, if you're above the water, you can be positive integers because you can be 3 feet above the water. That's not how you spell feet, sorry. 3 feet above the water. And then, like I said before, you can go under, you can dive underwater and be -3 feet underwater. But where the water level is, where sea level is, this is 0. So sea level is a great representation of 0. Let's go into an example. We want to label the integers on the number line. So we want to figure out what is missing. So first off, what is missing? What integer could we put in between -1 and 1? Well, we can put 0. Then let's look over to the right. What integer could we put over here? What integer is missing? So if you don't know off the top of your head, one, you can think about, well, what is 1 below 5? Or the other way we could do it is we could count up from 0. So we know the first one we're going up by 1. So we can count by 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would be positive 4 here. And now let's look at the opposite side, the left side. What integer is missing right here, right before negative 5? Well, again, we're going up by 1s. So 1, negative 2, negative 3, and negative 4. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention to you guys while we are here on our number line is comparing negative numbers. So when we're comparing positive numbers, we can say 5, I like to use this greater than sign. 5 is greater than 4. It's bigger than 4. But when we're talking about negatives, it's actually going to be the opposite. So in this case, negative 5 is less than or smaller than negative 4. And the reason being is negative 4 is closer to 0 on the number line, so it's larger. But because it's negative, I always like to think about this in terms of, let's say, money. Would you rather owe somebody $5 or would you rather owe somebody only $4? So in this case, negative 4 is going to be bigger than negative 5. All right. Riley recorded the temperatures for 5 days in January. Which day was the coldest day? Which was the warmest day? And then it wants us to write the temperatures from least to greatest. So first we need to actually put our missing numbers onto our number line here. So let's go ahead and do that first. So first let's start with negative 5. Negative 5, what integers does negative 5 go in between? Well, negative 5 goes in between negative 4 and negative 6. So I can put it right below here. Okay. Then I have negative 2 next. Where would negative 2 go? What numbers can negative 2 go in between? Well, negative 2, it's actually, we can see it right here on our number line. It's going to go right here in between negative 1 and negative 3. So now let's do the next one, positive 4, which we can also see positive 4 already on our number line over here, positive 4. The next one, we have negative 3. What integers could negative 3 go in between? Well, negative 3 is going to go in between negative 2 and negative 4. And our last one, the only space left, we have positive 1, which goes in between 0 and 2. So now let's think about what is the coldest day. What do you guys think the coldest day of Riley's data is? Well, the coldest day is actually going to be, since we're talking about temperature here, negative 5. So the coldest day is going to be Monday. And now let's think about what the warmest day would be. If the coldest day was Monday, negative 5, that means our warmest day is going to be Wednesday because it's 4 degrees on Wednesday. So that's going to be our warmest day. And now, as we can see, because we already labeled our numbers out, we've already listed them out in terms of least to greatest. So our lowest one, our coldest day was negative 5. And then our warmest day was 4. So they're already in order from least to greatest. Let's do one more. I want you guys to tell me which one is greater, negative 4 or negative 2. So in this case, negative 2 is greater. 1, if we drew a number line, see, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, and negative 4. Negative 2, I'm going to pick a different color here. Negative 2 is closest to 0. It's only 2 spaces away instead of 4. But also in terms of temperature or in terms of money like we talked about, negative 2 is going to be greater because it's warmer. If we're talking about temperature, negative 2 degrees is warmer than negative 4 degrees. And if we're talking about in terms of borrowing money, you would rather only borrow $2 from your friend than $4 from your friend. So that is why -2 is greater. And you can also write it out with our little greater than sign. So we can say -4 is less than -2. You can also read that as -2 is greater than